Let us pray. Blessed are you, Lord our God, for the gifts of wisdom and knowledge. Be with us today during these graduation exercises as we remember your love and direction in our lives. Help us to appreciate the life you provide for us, and send us your Holy Spirit to be our constant guide and inspiration, you who live forever and ever. Please be seated. As Chancellor of St. John's University, in the name of the sponsoring Benedictine community, St. John's Abbey, and in the name of the Board of Regents, I herewith call into session this commencement convocation at the conclusion of our 128th year for the conferring of the academic degrees granted by the university. I request Father Hilary Timish, President of the University, to take charge of these exercises.
It's a pleasure to welcome the graduating classes of the college and the School of Theology today, and our distinguished guests and parents, relatives, and friends of the graduates. Our 128th year has been a good one in many ways. The incoming class was strong, as is the outgoing class. The faculty in top form. My special thanks to them on behalf of all of you. And parking almost adequate. We made use of the renovated Gregg House from the beginning of the year, the renovated and expanded auditorium in stages during the year, and took several big steps forward together with the College of St. Benedict in development of academic computer facilities. Only minor damage resulted from a plot during the year to destroy Father Roman's supply of spare popcorn poppers. The academic achievements of faculty and students in teaching, learning, scholarship, and research are too numerous, of course, to mention, but provided the firm ground on which the quality of St. John's University continued strong. Not that we spent all of our time studying. We also spent quite a lot of time doing other things, including quite a lot of time out of doors. Life at St. John's has always been a combination of intellectual and social and spiritual growth in a setting of abundant natural growth, a place where on the same day the president may get complaints that there are too few computer terminals in the library and too many beaver cutting down trees on the lakeshore. It's hard to measure the effect of this spacious and largely unspoiled natural environment on students, but I would guess that having gone to school at a place where field sports take place against a backdrop of autumn foliage and the sound of the wild stereo in the springtime is balanced by the night cry of the common loon, does make for a certain sense of human proportion and joy in living. And I hope that as you reflect on your years, your education at St. John's, you will find that this indeed is true. The wholeness of life has long been our concern here, and that is why we were particularly saddened last week by the death of Dan Schwartz, a member of the graduating class. His classmates from St. John's and the College of St. Benedict who were in a pilot course in organizational leadership with him this last year have asked me to announce that they have established a scholarship in his name for business administration majors. Father Abbott mentioned that the collection at the baccalaureate mass this morning was for that purpose, and his classmates also invite contributions from other members of the class of '85, as well as parents, members of the faculty, and friends. And now to move on with the program. Among our speakers, our first speaker is Aaron Franta, speaking for the senior class. Aaron is a psychology major who comes from Winnebago, Minnesota. He's one of 5 children, 3 of whom have already graduated from St. John's, and one who is currently attending the College of St. Benedict. His parents have served on the St. John's Parents' Council for the past 2 years. In addition to being a good student, Aaron has been very involved in campus activities as a member of Alpha Kappa Sigma, as a campus minister, and as a student senator. It is also worthy of mention that he has been a staunch fan of basketball at St. John's.
Well, it is filled, I guess, today. It's kind of like reminiscing about being right back into the Rat Pack with everybody looking at me in this way. I'd like to welcome you all here today. I'm a little bit tongue-tied. I'm very, very nervous. I'm shaking now, but as it goes on, as long as you don't heckle me or throw stuff, I will make it through. I'd like to welcome the parents, the brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, anybody else who came to partake in this graduation ceremonies. It's one of the greatest honors I've ever had, because I've felt that being at college, this is where our true lifetime friends will be. High school is kind of a thing of the past. I don't keep too many contacts with them. But looking out into the crowd, you guys are something else. You really are. It's the best honor I've had. I'd like to say a special thanks to Egan and McMahon for nominating me for this. Kind of sounds like a lawyer already back there, out into the business world. And I'd like to add that I didn't need 2 Minneapolis phone books to stand on behind this podium today. When I first found out I was going to be the speaker for graduation ceremonies, they had mixed feelings. I was nervous for about 10 days. I had a case of the bad shakes. And no, it wasn't from the beer the night before either. But I did what the normal college student would do in my situation. I knew I had a job to do. I knew I had to have it done by today. So I blew it off. I wrote this speech 5 minutes before Mass this morning. I even petitioned Father Hillary for an extension on this last assignment. He denied it. But I said, now what can I write about? And again, I had mixed feelings, so I asked around to the senior class. I said, well, what would you like me to talk about? What would you like to hear? How could I captivate everybody? And I got quite the different opinions on that. One was to wear my red long underwear up here, so everybody would notice. One was to crack a Budweiser up here and salute you all. And the last one, which is the most amazing and only a college student could think of, is to wear nothing but a smile up here. But I didn't do any of these things, as you noticed, because there are some things even a Rat Pack member would not do, at least not in front of their parents. Sorry, Mom, Dad. But 4 years ago, we came up here, scared freshmen, didn't know too many people, saw a few noticeable faces that we knew, a few of the faculty. But we all came here for different reasons. Some of us might have come here because we had brothers like myself that had gone to school here, or dads, or uncles, or grandpas. Some of us, I know, came here because St. Ben's was only 5 miles away. And even some of us came here for a liberal arts education. Somebody doubting that back there? But why we came here, it doesn't really matter. It's that we're here now and we're graduating. The similarities that I see in everybody here that's graduating are really astounding, and I think it makes St. John's University one of the most unique colleges in the state and in the country. I see similarities in our value systems, in our morals, in our religion. Where did we get this? Well, that's pretty easy to figure out. Who we spent the first 18 years with in our life. It was our parents. They showed us the structure. They taught us how to care for people. They taught us their values, and they taught us about religion, about God, about love. So to parents, to our parents, we owe them the world because we're here now. The caring that goes on here at St. John's that our parents taught us is also very, very unique. It goes on every day here at St. John's. You can just see it in almost anything we do, the polite smiles, the highs, and how are you doings. You can hitchhike to St. Ben's, St. Cloud, you get picked up. Someone will say, how are you doing? A conversation starts. You know a name and you have another friend. But one of the perfect examples of this caring came this last week when 2 classmates died. We came together to talk, hope, and pray for them when we found out about the accident. And then the big blow came on Tuesday night. Dan Schwartz died. Schwartz was a good guy, a stereotype Johnny. He was friendly, warm, and as a priest said at his funeral, he liked to have his fun, and he had that. He touched our lives with friendship and that never-ending happiness so many Johnnies have. And as for Ward, he's still in there, too. He's still at the hospital, but he's pulling through with a Johnny spirit, the strength that says, I can do anything. Even the nurses will attest to that. The rumor even has that the nurses are looking forward to his departure just as much as he is. But our friendships don't stop in Minnesota or the United States. They go over to China, Japan, Africa, and yes, those beautiful people from the Bahamas. It is such a great experience to sit down with any foreigner and talk to him or her about his culture. You learn from that. Nothing that a textbook could actually teach you. It's firsthand. I had an experience like this with them. I was eating breakfast with them a couple years ago, and I come from a small town, so I don't see too many black people or foreigners in our town. I sat down with them. Besides, they had a fast-speaking dialect. I could not understand them. They had Tabasco sauce on their eggs, and they couldn't resist calling me Spot. But the friendships with these people are something unique, very unique and very special to us all, I think. These people are too frequently called minorities. They should never be overlooked, and I hope everybody will always have them as friends. Before I close, I'd like to make a business deal right now. I'm not going to pass a hat. I'm just going to make a quick $50 because someone said that if I said their name, they'd pay me $50. I was propositioned a few nights ago by Brian Leary and today by John Young. And one more cliche I have to say is this is not an end but a beginning. I'm not really sure how much that one is worth, but I'm not cheap. And just leave it at that, guys. But if they do pay up, Sal's Bar, I think, is open tonight, isn't it? As things wind down for us today, I'd like you to take a look around. Look at the people that you'll see today and maybe not for a long time. Give them a hug and a kiss. Say goodbye. Keep in mind all your friends here at St. John's. Keep in your prayers Schwartzy and Ward. Look at this old place. Refresh your memories. Take a walk by the Sag and say to yourself, do you feel lucky today? Because you should. Because you are a graduate of St. John's University.
Esther DeWall is a historian and a teacher, a writer and a mother, a Benedictine oblate, and an ecumenist. She is English. She was brought up in a country vicarage in the Welsh borders. She studied history at the University of Cambridge and wrote her doctoral thesis on 18th century local government. She is taught at Cambridge, Nottingham, the Lincoln Theological College, the Open University, and Canterbury. Her husband, Victor, is the Dean of Canterbury. Dr. DeWall combines her work as wife and mother of 4 sons with that of the life of the deanery, as well as continuing her teaching. In 1982, she started the Benedictine Experience, which brought a group of Americans to live in the Canterbury Cathedral precincts for 10 days to follow the Benedictine life of study, worship, and work. She has written several books and many articles. Her most recent book, Seeking God, The Way of St. Benedict, was published in this country at St. John's Liturgical Press last year. It has been selling briskly. If you have read it, you will know why. In an easy style, Mrs. DeWall assimilates scholarship and personal experience to make a book rich in practical insight and understanding, to produce a work of spirituality rooted in ancient sources, which speaks so readily and so clearly to contemporary people, is an intellectual and an ecumenical achievement of note. I am particularly happy to present Dr. Esther de Waal.
And I feel particularly honored to be your guest today on this great day of rejoicing with the bells and the banners and the brass. Rejoicing for those who graduate today, the triumph of getting your degrees. For the parents of the graduates, the pleasure at seeing the outcome of those student years. For the members of the faculty, the satisfaction at this fitting conclusion to those hours of teaching. And I find myself in sympathy with you all. As the mother of 4 sons aged from 18 to 23, 2 of whom have graduated and 2 of whom are still struggling, my feelings go out to both graduates and parents. And as a teacher, too, I know something of the gratification and, yes, the relief when this day arrives. But then I, too, am to be given a degree, and this for me is the cause of deep rejoicing. For the degree that I received today would have been totally and utterly unthinkable on that day over 30 years ago now, when I received my first degree and stood in the place where you graduates stand today. It would have been unthinkable on a number of grounds. Firstly, I was setting out to do an extremely dull and tedious piece of work. I think you would all agree that years of dedication to the subject of local government in Gloucestershire, 1775 to 1800, with special reference to prison reform, is hardly something to attract your immediate sympathy or even to capture your imagination. It didn't open many horizons. It was something that could be safely committed to endless pieces of paper in a neat card index system, so that I should come to write a book on the rule of St. Benedict, and one that reflected my own personal religious experience, would on that day and in the years that follow have seemed utterly unlikely. But then that I should be standing here today in this great abbey church, the guest of a Roman Catholic community and university, would also have seemed almost equally improbable. Brought up in the depths of the English countryside by a father who was a country priest of the old order, I knew that Catholics, not that there were very many in the borders of Wales, were somehow not quite human beings, a feeling which doubtless they reciprocated about us Anglicans. And yet I am here with you today as your guest, the wife of an Anglican priest, and one, moreover, who finds herself at the heart of the Anglican communion in Canterbury. And that world of my upbringing now seems like some bad dream, some travesty, some nightmare where the shapes and shadows bear no relationship to the reality of loving, accepting, and growing understanding between us all as human beings and as common disciples following Christ. So if today is a day of rejoicing on many scores, I think we must celebrate the breaking down of those old barriers of suspicion and misunderstanding, and thank God for the fine ecumenical tradition of this place and all that its vision and energy has contributed, both in America and beyond, to the growing unity of the Church. And I believe that this crossing of the divides, which in this case is directly due to our Holy Father St. Benedict, who may be held personally responsible for bringing me into your company today, will continue and grow stronger. And it seems so right that on this day of Pentecost, I should for a moment turn my thoughts to Canterbury, which long before it became the mother church of the worldwide Anglican Communion was one of the greatest of medieval Benedictine foundations, and that in thinking of Canterbury, we should rejoice that the links between us are growing firmer all the time, forged through our common heritage of the past and its reaffirmation in the present. So this is the end of my journey, to date at least. Yet if I simply say that I have come from Canterbury to Collegeville, that could be misleading if you thought that that was no more than a straight journey from A to B, the journey of the plane and the motorway, direct between 2 points. No, the journey which brought me here was full of surprises and new turnings and chance encounters, much in fact like the best of all journeys, unpredictable, unexpected. It is in fact just the sort of journey that I would wish for all of you as you set out on the journeys that will take you from this place today. And of the factors that fashioned it, I pick out one in particular, one that the previous speaker referred to too, and that is friendship. For I cannot let today pass without paying my own private and personal tribute of deep gratitude to the man who helped to make this link come apart, and that is Bishop William Dimmock, a man to whom was given the gift of friendship, but who also knew that it was a gift to be cultivated, that it demands time and attention and imagination, that although it is something which is deeply important and serious, it's also an occasion for much laughter and great enjoyment. For our world, I believe, needs friendship like this more and more. We know, I think, more about other relationships within a family, a marriage, being son or daughter, mother or father. But being a friend and continuing to be a friend asks of us just as much insight and time and attention, and too, the readiness to change, so that those friendships that you carry out with you today from this place don't fossilize at the stage of your student years, but go on to grow and bring you riches and refreshment in the very different days that lie ahead. If I share with you the story, my own story of a journey and how that has been shaped, it is because I want quite simply to show from my own personal experience that this graduation day is only the start of a journey which will, I hope, amaze you by its unexpectedness and its unpredictability, its fullness and its riches. Being open to the new, to change and to challenge, is something which is nowadays often easier to pay lip service to than to live out. Yet, commencement is a superb word. It's not one that we use in England. That is perhaps why I find it so arresting. I've not heard it so often that its sound has become familiar in my ears. I hear it ringing out now with all its implications. This today is simply the start. It all lies before you now. I don't think that my role as your commencement speaker is that of fairy godmother bringing you gifts today, even if I could. Yet you can imagine that I have time and again asked myself what gifts I would wish for my own sons. And I think I would simply wish for them, as I would wish for all of you today, freedom, critical freedom. Freedom to question, which is what I hope you carry away from your academic studies here. Freedom to be ready to respond to the new and to welcome the challenge of being open to change. Freedom to cross barriers, whether of religion and creed, or class, or color, or age. Freedom to build the new on the old, which this building has shown you in your time here, for it speaks to the 20th century world and is an expression of the best of its age. It is forward-looking, even though it is still based on the timeless inheritance of 1,500 years of monastic understanding. You've studied here under the shadow of this great Benedictine monastery. I hope that people will see in you men and women who can integrate a highly intelligent professional way of life with attention to Benedictine values. Men and women who continue to seek God in the world outside through the rule of St. Benedict, speaking to us all. For what I believe the rule of St. Benedict can bring to us all is the means to become more fully human, to discover the balanced way of life, which recognizes due attention to body, mind, and spirit, which presents us with the basic questions about power and possessions and personal relationships, which tells us about respect for people and reverence in handling the material, and yet does so in a way that doesn't threaten, but sets us free, giving us an inner freedom to question and confront the claims of contemporary society. St. Benedict's blunt, gentle, yet forceful way of life is giving us a yardstick, a thoroughly critical yardstick, to measure ourselves against the fragmenting and the threatening tendencies going on in the world around us. A world screaming its message of self-advancement, of competition, of material gain. So I'm not ashamed to wish that as you leave here today, you will take St. Benedict with you as friend and mentor. In how many other graduation ceremonies would such a wish be natural? Something, however, which I feel I can express here without apology and without embarrassment. For you have lived here as I have lived at Canterbury, with the insights of a rule which knows so much about the daily and the ordinary, and which is the most practical of guides to daily living, and not least to lay Christians of the later 20th century. And today, as each of you carry a hood on your shoulders, it brings to my mind a Celtic blessing which I have found strangely moving. As her sons and daughters leave home, the mother watches them set out into the world in freedom, and she says, "Be the great God between thy two shoulders, to protect thee in thy coming and in thy going." I should like to feel that as you too set out, that blessing is appropriate for you and your future on the day that you have that gown between your shoulders. And as that future begins for you today, as you leave this magnificent Abbey Church, may I hope that as you set out on this journey, open to respond to the new, the unexpected, the unpredictable, you do so with an inner freedom, because you have St. Benedict for a guide, and because of what this place and your time here has given you.
During the course of the year, we gave the Pax Christi Award to Dr. Robert Bilheimer, who had been the executive director of the Institute for Ecumenical and Cultural Studies at St. John's for the past 10 years. So that award is not on the program today, but I want it to be recorded that Dr. Bilheimer did receive it in the course of this past year. Today we wish to honor 3 distinguished guests with honorary degrees. I will ask Sister Eva Hooker to read the citations in order.
Benedictine Oblate, writer and teacher, wife and mother, ecumenist, you spent your childhood in a Shropshire vicarage next to a medieval Benedictine priory. Now you make your home in one of Canterbury's medieval monastic dwellings. In the course of this journey, you have regarded life with a historian's discernment and patience, and have come to find in the tradition of Benedictine monasticism an attitude of reflective search for truth and acceptance of the joys and sufferings of Christian life. Your research and teaching of history at Cambridge, Leicester, Nottingham, the Open University, and Canterbury have prepared you to understand Benedict and his monastic sons and daughters without illusion or romanticism. Your sensitivity to spirituality and religious community fills your study of monastic life with the richness of personal experience. Your experience of marriage and motherhood distinguishes you from earlier residents of your medieval home, but you have used this historical irony to inform the challenges of modern family life with an enduring monastic presence at Canterbury. Your book, Searching for God, The Way of Saint Benedict, calls us back to the essential qualities of the monastic way of life and suggests to us the domestic wisdom of Benedict's evangelical spirit. Your Anglican heritage as active laywoman and daughter of a country vicar roots you firmly in the religious consciousness of your homeland. You work in the practical ecumenism of hospitality to pilgrims and a pope, of writing a book with introductions by both Anglican and Roman archbishops, of bringing French monks and inquisitive Americans to Canterbury for periods of prayer and work. Your lecturing in England and abroad points us beyond confessional differences to Benedict's life and teaching in a united church. For these reasons, we, the academic community of St. John's University, Collegeville, Minnesota, confer upon you, Esther DeWall, the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. As a priest of the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, you have served our church, our nation, and our youth with unfailing devotion and fidelity for nearly 40 years. Your initial assignment as a parish priest immediately after ordination in 1946 prepared you for your 5-year tour of duty as a chaplain in the United States Air Force. That experience, in turn, equipped you to deal successfully with college-age youth when you were first appointed to the faculty of the College of St. Thomas in 1954 and later to administrative positions. Your appointment as president of St. Thomas in 1966 occurred during an era of deep unrest and radical change in American higher education. Throughout that tumultuous period, you guided and led the students and faculty of your college with a sure and compassionate hand, strengthened by your priestly concern and your abiding respect for the primacy of human rights and civil liberties. All the while, you have maintained with firmness and patience the centrality of the liberal arts in your college's curriculum. You continue to do so today as you approach vigorously the 20th year of your president, just as the College of St. Thomas equally vigorously, approaches its 100th year of learning, faith, and service. In celebration of your 20 years of distinguished service to higher education, and on the occasion of the observance of the College of St. Thomas's centennial year, we, the academic community of St. John's University, Collegeville, Minnesota, salute you, Terrence John Murphy, and confer upon you the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. To be in any position for 32 years is an accomplishment. To serve for that period of time as managing editor and then editor of our distinguished American Catholic magazine, Commonweal, lay-directed weekly, is a double accomplishment. Jim O'Gara, known to his friends and admirers by that title, has directed the Commonweal through the tumultuous times of pre-conciliar, conciliar, and post-Vatican Council II discourse. He has been a distinctive example of the emerging Catholic layman and a stalwart defender of the integrity and worth of the intellectual life in a developing national Catholic community. Political, cultural, social, and religious questions were a weekly concern that he surveyed with dignity and grace. Progressive and conservative thrusts of contemporary church and state were constantly pressing for careful analysis. James O'Gara steadily sought out and stressed the Catholic tradition of social thought. He kept the faith, finished the course, and now runs the race anew as a scholar-philosopher with equal vigor and clarity of thought and expression. As you have honored us by your presence and leadership, so this Benedictine and academic community rejoices in recognizing you with an honorary doctorate of humane letters. Will the candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts please rise? Father Hilary Temish, President of St. John's University, I present the candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts, which have been approved by the faculty of this university.
By virtue of the authority committed to me, I confer upon you the degrees of Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts, which have been approved by the faculty of the university and for which you have been recommended. The Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences will please have the candidates come forward.
Bachelor of Arts, egregia cum laude, William Nowak. Bachelor of Science, egregia cum laude, Todd Stoltman. Bachelor of Science, summa cum laude, John Schnettler. Bachelor of Arts, summa cum laude, Valerian Keela Jr., Christopher Schrantz. Bachelor of Science, magna cum laude, Tom Archbold, Mark Arnold, Mark Detke, Rich Dockendorf, Paul Kaus, Gary Kirkvliet, Mark Laswell, Scott Reimer. Bachelor of Arts, magna cum laude, Philip Bailey, David Blazer, Steve Drew, Ken Geisen, Thomas Howard, Robert Reitz. Bachelor of Science, cum laude, Steve Berg, Steve Bettig, David Collins, Daniel Larson, Paul Miller, Kevin Ron, Brian Trefus, Thomas Wagoner, Doug Wesley. Bachelor of Arts, cum laude, Brian Carlson, Thomas Peterson, John Pupor, Todd Sattler, John Stout, Alan Zenk. And Bachelor of Science, please come forward. Thank you. The degree of Bachelor of Science is conferred upon Steve Nadeau, David Flynn, Paul Germscheid, David Fuchs, John Smirsky, Timothy Miller, Joel Rolick, Jeffrey Schmidtman, Thomas O'Hara, Mark Peterson, Douglas Olson, Stephen Stasowitz, Thomas Hooley, Kenneth Horch, Michael Flicker, John Petruski, Leo Byron, Ronald Dorshak, William Milbert, Jerry Herman, Jeffrey Mathiasen, Michael McNeil, Patrick Wright, Paul Vogel, David Mead Jr., Thomas Johnson, Michael Farley, Carl Insel, Gregory Ferguson, Barry Roll, James Moss, Christopher Stewart Jr., Terrence Bastian, Earl Thompson, Mark Bastian, Thomas Macaulay, Anthony Klein, Michael Lynn, Charles Holden, Mark Gorham, Mark Lance, Michael Winchittle, Peter Long, Victor Kiesab, Jeffrey Folkert, Jason Schwartz, Richard Pincinole, James Ruther, Jeffrey Nelson, Thomas Fraley, Patrick O'Brien, Gary Fabiziak, Andrew Straken, Brian Cole, Scott Labatt, Randall Zebarth, Garrett Lindeman, Timothy Probst, Douglas Anderson, Terry Heeb, Francis Hughes, William Casey, James Warnke, Gregory Salk, Alan Shunk, Clarence White, Martin Tabor, Stephen Coutier, Mark Schiller, Jeffrey Murphy, Timothy Hendrickson, Lawrence Latender, Kenneth Benning, Robert Simmet, James Lang, Patrick Bowe, Michael Phillips, Jeffrey Chalmers, Ronald Klinker, Mark Heil, Benedict Mundlock, Thomas Roost, Stephen Peterson, Eric Pressrud, John Cohort, William Wimmer, John Alpers, Scott Johnson, Robert C., Martin Ewell, Philip Copa, Thomas Sullivan, William Ziegler, Bruce Hibbard, James Lewandowski, Patrick Crane, Michael Mavison, Robert Duvall, Kevin Dobus, John Archbold, Thomas Bedford, Richard Leach, Timothy Butterfield, Chandler Sands, Stephen Wurst, James Booth, Mark Lambert, Daniel Boding, David Hauk, Robert Martinka, Paul Smith, Daniel Beamer, Kevin Keene, James Flynn, Dennis Willert, Kevin Killoran, Thomas Orodnik, Paul Zabinski, Randall Davinsky, Paul Velez, Godfrey Akumaya, John Becker, Daniel Kramer, Dwayne Jenkins, Brian Berglund, Daniel Ford, Kenneth Wong, Robert Tran, Robert Speltz, Stephen Smolke, Terrence Moore, Eric Christensen, Thomas Schaefer, Roman George, James Ziegler, Daniel McEwen, Patrick Kennedy, Jonathan Dagan, Perry Schmidt, Patrick Tanucci, Gregory Thiel, William Gronis, Rick Herman, Brian Baker, Joseph Birch, Bruce Fuyan, Timothy Burnt, Patrick Collins, David Henneman, Vincent Fonlander, Gregory Oberhauser, Douglas Jarmaluk, Daniel Holmes, Benjamin Hart, Stephen Verkinderen, William Jose, Thomas West, William Nath, Stephen Anderson, Bradley Zita, David Smith, Robert Cass Jr., Patrick Cruikshank, Peter Reap, Jeffrey Lindquist, Michael Walsh, John Egan, David Belland, Michael Kuzo, Brian Byerly, William Lang, Thomas Daughters Jr., Todd Alkier, Kevin Nockels, Thomas Patron, Mark Richards, Patrick Sarafolian, William Leininger, Paul Labatt, Joseph Peterson, David Jacobchek, Timothy McCullough, Donald Hayden, Douglas Campbell, Gregory Grothy, Joseph Baker, Douglas Cleary, David Miller, Joel Reen, Paul Quirum, Stephen Bunta, Gregory Sherlock, Brian Stroman, Mark Nicholas, Joseph Hammond, Joseph Haru, Jonathan Lalonde, Thomas Kiefer, Mark Davison, Kevin Pletcher, Michael Laird, Jerry Keep, Greg Peller, Gregory Kowalska, Peter Greenheck, John Zachman, Eric Olson, Bennett Morgan, Patrick Rolfs, John Fisher, Michael Neeser, Kenneth Meyer, George Round, Paul Rockford, Thomas Foley, Christopher Kapsner, T-Shawn Brown, Pedro Olazabal, Michael Gallagher, David Peters, Kenneth Songroth, Scott Backus, Christopher Nate, William Muskie, Jeffrey Verkston, Kevin Jagelski, Sean Levitt. The degree of Bachelor of Arts is conferred upon Bruce Ellingson, Lee McGuire, James Madigan, Brian Manning, Mark Tristani, John Halloran, Thomas Sullivan, Harvey Radke, Dean Mandel, John Hawkins, Daniel Matthews, Angel Oriana, Timothy Kolakowski, Michael Krauser, Brian Arian, Santiago Alva, Michael Yates, John Henry, Sean O'Brien, Michael Collins, Jeffrey Cannon, Thomas Model, Patrick Plonsky, David Matz, Timothy Fisher, Joseph Polta, David Thoreen, Gregory Beckman, Daniel Van Wyck, Julio Ojeda, John Taylor, John Steffenhagen, Thomas Conry, Paul Golodowicz, Joseph Lynch, Michael Murray, Michael Schwieters, Stephen Meyer, Kevin Tree, Jacobus de Hoog, John Peterson, John Pieper, Randall Kite, James Dempsey, John Brennan Jr., John Kramer, Jeffrey Sweetman, Michael Timish, Kevin Hayden, Sean Foster, Michael Ritchie Jr., Thomas Dolan, Paul Elskamp, Gregory Allen Larson, Daniel Dodge, James Wisnant, Matthew Knipp, Bradley Nelson, Gregory Wildhaber, Peter Sand, John Mullen, Donald Efforts, John Seifert, Paul Woida, Paul Melcher, Francis Snee, Donald Face, Daniel Kalkman, Thomas Lenhart, Mark Willert, Todd Dunphy, John Parks, Mark Young, Jonathan Young, Daniel Moriarty, Scott Tyson, William Randall, Michael Meyer, Kevin McMahon, Aaron Franta, Kevin Gallagher, James Sella, Charles Mahler, James Thornton, John Petra, Michael Brown, Stephen Shaughnessy, James Doherty, Hans Griebel, George Ganyu, Michael Blomker, Bruce Wolfe, Thomas Grimmer, Daniel Stem, Eric Enberg, Brian Cheetah, Alphonsus Anamudu, Michael Manning, James Pogge, Brian Leary, David Sarma, Todd McNerney, John Stanko Jr., Paul Dwyer, William Sweeney, Stephen Pellner, John Getke, Vim Ebis, and Robert Tarnowski.
Will the candidates for the degrees of Master of Divinity and Master of Arts in Theology please rise? Father Hilary Timish, President of St. John's University, I present the candidates for the degrees of Master of Divinity and Master of Arts, which have been approved by the faculty of the university.
By virtue of the authority committed to me, I confer upon you the degrees of Master of Divinity and Master of Arts, which have been approved by the faculty of the university and for which you have been recommended. The Dean of the School of Theology will please have the candidates come forward.
The degree of Master of Divinity is conferred upon Timothy Campion Berneman. Kenneth John Kavanaugh. Luigi Grisky, OSB. Stephen John Kortendick. Bartholomew Robert Leon, OSB. Ronald J. Naker. Maurice F. Peterson. Thomas J. Samolinsky. Todd Patrick Schneider. Richard John Spicer. And Julie Marie Wokish, OSB. The degree of Master of Arts is conferred upon Alphonsus Janatu Anamudu. Irene Doman, SSND. Jeffrey Hudson, OSB. William Andrew Oliver. Jack Leroy Overman. Scott Anthony Francis Shea. Laura Quigley Shoup. Jerry Cressel Warner. And Kathleen Wider, SSJ.
Let us pray. We thank you, Lord, for the many labors and sacrifices of parents, relatives, friends, and teachers who have brought us to this point in our lives. We thank you for the gifts of peace and hope. We ask that you be with us always as we struggle to be of service to you and the human community, you who live forever and ever. Amen.